Good afternoon, and welcome to True Crime Mysteries. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today we're discussing some Tinder date stories that took a murderous turn. Let's get into it. With over 75 million monthly active users, Tinder has revolutionized how people meet from anywhere in the world. And as you're watching this, millions of people are probably swiping left and swiping right, looking for their match made in heaven. And although matches on Tinder have the potential to blossom into something romantic, some take a dark turn and end up tragically. Number 1. Samantha Stewart. When 27-year-old Samantha Stewart didn't respond to her family's calls and texts for days, they knew something must have happened to her. On the night of July 17, 2018, her worried brother decided to go to her apartment in Queens, New York to check on her. Her brother made a horrible discovery to find her sister's naked body wrapped in a white sheet in her bedroom floor. Her tongue was hanging out of her mouth and all of her teeth had been knocked out. Samantha was a registered nurse at a Long Island hospital and a beloved role model to her brothers and sisters. Her mourning relatives described her as the shining star in the family. When the police arrived at the scene, they found no signs of forced entry, and they said that the nurse suffered trauma to the neck and head. The cause of death was later to be ruled manual strangulation. The prime suspect in the homicide was Samantha's date, who was last seen on surveillance footage leaving her house the night that she died. A week after Samantha's death, a fugitive task force traced the suspect to a Los Angeles hotel. Daniel Drayton, the suspect, a 31-year-old man who was originally from New Haven, Connecticut. According to police reports, he had a lengthy criminal record prior to Samantha's murder, which included jail time for strangulation and harassment. Samantha had met Drayton after they matched on Tinder. The pair went on a date on July 16, 2018, and later that night returned to Samantha's apartment, where Drayton beat and strangled her to death. He was seen by surveillance cameras getting into a white van that was later found abandoned at JFK Airport the next day. He had stolen Samantha's credit card and used it to purchase a plane ticket to California. When law enforcement apprehended him in a North Hollywood hotel room, he was holding another woman against her will and had sexually assaulted her. He was taken into custody by the LAPD and was charged with premeditated attempted murder, forcible sexual assault, and false imprisonment by violence. The New York Daily News interviewed Drayton while he was being held in a Los Angeles jail. He told them he suffered from schizophrenia and bipolar II disorder. He admitted that he remembered killing Samantha after a date. He said that he liked her, but the voices in his head told him she had to die. Drayton claimed that these voices used direct energy weapons on him to control his mind, making him unable to defy them. Investigators believed he was playing the insanity card in order for his defense. At one point, they also thought he may have been a serial killer using popular dating sites like Tinder to lure his victims. Because during his interrogation, Drayton admitted to killing 6 more women, 2 in Connecticut and 4 in New York. But as of now, investigators haven't been able to find any proof of these claims. At the time of Samantha's murder, Drayton was free on a $2,000 bail while he was awaiting trial for a case in the Nassau County, New York. He had been charged with choking his former girlfriend, Zenea Barney, after she tried to end their relationship. He had been released 12 days before he murdered Samantha.
This was a story that gripped the headlines. He was wanted for killing a Queens nurse, and when police found him, Daniel Drayton was in a Los Angeles hotel room with a woman who had allegedly been tied up and beaten. Drayton says he may have killed a total of 7 women, including women right here in our area.
Police are still working to confirm that he killed 3 women in the New York area, but we do know that he is the main suspect in the killing of a Queens nurse, Samantha Stewart. Police say Drayton used Tinder to find and stalk that young nurse. Joining us right now is Zenea Barney, and she met Drayton on Plenty of Fish.
Yeah.
And you guys dated last year for several months, about 6 months, correct?
Yes.
Until your relationship came to a violent end.
Yes.
Talk to us about what happened. And when you guys met, you thought this guy is your dream guy, right?
Yes. He didn't show no signs at all of being aggressive, possessive. He didn't, no red flags, no warning signs. He appeared normal, regular conversations. He was able to, to show me, being emotional. A very well stand-up guy. I didn't see it coming.
So when did it go south?
It went south exactly when I decided to stop seeing him completely. I drew the line and was like, listen, you can't keep popping up at my house. You can't, he climbed through my window at a point, and then it was just everything started getting a little scary.
In that case, the judge who released him didn't know that Drayton had a criminal record in his home state of Connecticut, dating to at least 2011. Samantha's death was attributed to missing paperwork and a lapse in communication. Drayton was extradited from California to New York, where he was arraigned on several charges. The charges included murder in the 2nd degree, grand larceny in the 4th degree, petty larceny, sexual misconduct, identity theft, unlawful possession of personal identification, and criminal possession of stolen property. This time, Drayton is currently being held without bail, and if convicted, he will face 25 years in prison. Queens District Attorney commented on the case saying, "This was a brutal crime that makes every person using a dating app fearful. The victim was duped into going out on a date with the defendant, who played a charmer online but was in fact an alleged sexual predator. The defendant is accused of brutally beating and then killing this innocent woman in her home. After this heinous act of violence, the defendant fled the state to escape prosecution. Now back in our custody, this defendant will be held to account for his alleged actions." The NYPD believes there may be other women out there that spoke to Drayton online or met up with him. They're asking anyone with information to call them. Daniel Drayton at this time doesn't have a court date set, but let me know if you want further updates on court appearances. Sydney Loofe. 24-year-old Sydney Loofe left work at her local Maynard store where she worked as a cashier for a Tinder date with a woman named Audrey. Both women had hit it off, and Sydney talked to her friends about this new woman in her life whom she really wanted to get to know more. She'd also sent the picture of that girl to her best friend, Brooklyn McChrystal. During their date on that night, Audrey picked up Sydney from her work. Then they spent the night driving around while smoking weed. Then, according to Audrey, she dropped Sydney off at a friend's house. But the following morning, Sydney didn't show up for work, which was extremely unlike her. She also didn't respond to any texts sent to her by her mom and friends. Her last online activity was a Snapchat photo captioned, "Ready for my date." Her mother, Susie, reported her daughter missing, and the next day the police paid a welfare check visit to Sydney's rental home, but she was nowhere to be found. There was no evidence of any altercation, and her car, glasses, and purse were left behind. Also, her beloved cat was left unfed, something Sydney would never have forgotten to do. Meanwhile, the owner of a duplex complained of a bleach odor coming out of his basement rented by a bizarre couple. Additionally, he found it strange that the couple had an air conditioner going in the cold month of November. The couple was 55-year-old Audrey Trail and 28-year-old Bailey Boswell. They told the landlord that they were engaged and worked as antique dealers. Little did he know that that was just the tip of the iceberg. Trail and Boswell were involved and later convicted of scamming a Kansas couple out of $400,000 over some counterfeit coins, and they claimed to be leaders of a vampire sex cult. According to women involved in the cult who later came forward, Audrey called himself Daddy and believed that he was a vampire that could fly. He told them that he had gained his powers through killing and torturing people, and if they wanted to possess special abilities like him, they would also have to kill people. On the other hand, Bailey considered herself a witch with healing powers. Most of the women they met and recruited were through Tinder. Bailey was always the ones that they would match with. Every time she matched with a new candidate, she would use a different name, one of which was Audrey. Once she met and connected with the women, she'd tell them about Daddy Aubrey and the occult. Aubrey also liked to call himself the Master and considered himself a sugar daddy, as he would give the women in his group a weekly allowance of $2,000 to pay for all their needs. However, he had rules. Those women had to call him Daddy or Master, and Bailey was either Mommy or Mistress. They weren't allowed to be with any other man and had to check in with him through text or call every 3 hours. They had to ask permission to do anything, even if it was as simple as drinking water or using the bathroom. They also had to help the couple steal and sell antiques and partake in group sex. If any of the women broke any of the rules, she would be whipped or choked with a belt by Bailey, aka the Queen Witch. One of the women later testified that Trail and Boswell brought up killing and torturing people often. She said that she told her that they needed to kill to get powers. She said Boswell talked about cutting out people's eyelids and pouring acid on them. She also said that Trail once showed her what he called Bailey's killing bag. It contained a sauna suit, hammer, and a pair of pliers. Investigators found a sauna suit in rural Clay County, where Sidney Loofe's body was later found. After Sidney went missing, Brooklyn McChrystal set out to find out what happened to her best friend. She made a Tinder profile similar to the one that Sidney had and swiped left on one Tinder profile after another until she finally stumbled upon Audrey's profile. She swiped right and messaged Audrey, who responded by sending her phone number, which Brooklyn immediately gave to law enforcement. On a call with the police, the so-called Audrey told them she had dropped off Sidney at a friend's house and she hadn't heard from her ever since, and she refused to come to the precinct for questioning. Days later, investigators were able to pin down the Wilbur duplex as the last place where Sidney's phone had pinged. The pungent smell of bleach immediately caught their attention when they searched the basement where Trail and Boswell lived. On November 28th, Boswell and Trail were considered persons of interest. They responded to the declaration by making a Facebook live stream in which they maintained their innocence by saying that they had nothing to do with Sidney's disappearance.
Don't even know what else to say. I've been seeing all this stuff on the news presses and the magazines and the news, and I guess I just want the family to know that I'm truly sorry and I didn't have anything to do with this, and I hope that Sidney is found very soon. She is a sweet, amazing girl. I don't know. Babe, do you have anything else to say?
I hope also that Sidney's found soon. We wish the family the best. We're sorry you're going through this. As far as all this stuff that the police department is putting in the papers, putting on the news, what they're feeding to the media, what they want the media to know, there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing she can do about that because the police department is going to do what suits them best. Yeah, I know that's coming from a criminal, so, you'll believe what you will as far as the police department is concerned. But as far as I'm concerned, what they're chasing us around like dogs, I wish the family the best. I mean, no disrespect to anyone. I wish Sidney the best.
On November 30th, they were arrested in a Missouri motel and brought back to Nebraska on a fraud indictment. Items found in their motel room revealed that they were planning to flee to Mexico. On December 5th, search teams led by the FBI finally found Sidney's remains. Her body was dismembered and cut into 14 pieces, some of which were never found. The remains were wrapped in trash bags and scattered among multiple ditches down 2 different roads in Clay County, approximately an hour west of Wilbur. Even before running the DNA analysis, investigators were confident the remains belonged to Sidney, based on a tattoo on one of her arms saying, "Everything will be wonderful someday." This detail is especially heart-wrenching because Sidney had been suffering from severe depression for many years. She had only started feeling better and getting her life back on track when her life was cut short by 2 deranged people. After the arrest, Trail confessed that he solely killed Sidney and claimed that Bailey was innocent. In his confession, he revealed that they killed Sidney because she had rejected their lifestyle and was a threat to their group because she had said she was going to expose them. Bailey and Trail exchanged several ciphered letters during their incarceration before the trial. The detectives deciphered the codes, showing Trail taking full responsibility for the crime and telling Bailey to say that she was a forced participant despite that being untrue. The letters later played a significant role in condemning Bailey. On June 11, 2018, Boswell and Trail were charged with murder in the first degree and improper disposal of human remains. The prosecutor expressed their plans to seek capital punishment. At one of the court appearances, Trail lashed out, saying, "Bailey is innocent, I curse you all." Then he slashed his throat with a sharp object. He missed a significant part of the trial, but made a full recovery and attended sentencing. The prosecution presented evidence against Boswell in trial. On November 15th, surveillance cameras showed the couple shopping at Aardvark Antique Mall, where they bought a folding saw, a weeder, and food grinders. Shortly after, cell tower data for both suspects' phones showed that they were waiting near Sydney's residence before her departure to work, and they appeared to have followed her to Maynard's. While Sydney was at work, Home Depot surveillance tapes showed the duo buying a foot-long hacksaw, drop cloths, and sharp utility knives with backup blades. Other surveillance recordings displayed Boswell and Trail purchasing a tree saw, 30-gallon trash bags, and a couple of gallons of Clorox bleach before and after the murder. With all the evidence against them, it took the jury only hours to reach a guilty verdict. Trail spoke at his sentencing hearing, where he was ultimately sentenced to death by lethal injection. Boswell was sentenced to life in prison, as it was deemed by a panel of judges that Boswell's crimes didn't meet the judicial threshold for capital punishment in the state. Well, that is it for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this content and what I do over here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss my next upload. And as always, if you give this video a like, if you enjoyed the content, that would be much appreciated, as it is the easiest way to help the channel grow. We also have channel membership as well as Patreon if you want to get more behind the scenes content or just to support the channel. In the description box, you will also find links to all my socials to connect with me, as well as other goodies. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.